You're now at the oldest bicycle shop in America, started in 1891. Go inside and see if Charlie is working. He can tell you about how Albert Einstein used to come inside the store and just gaze at the gadgets. Everyone knows the famous photo of Albert Einstein on a bike. That wasn't taken here in Princeton, that was somewhere else. In fact, nobody remembers him riding a bike here in Princeton. But he never drove a car, he never learned how. There was a little boy here in Princeton, a teenager, that was actually his chauffeur. And if you get lost on Amazon sometimes, you can see old printings of his famous book, Einstein in My Rearview Mirror. He talks about what it was like to have the most brilliant man in the back seat. He talks about the musings Albert Einstein would have about residents, how he loved the nature in Princeton and the beautiful architecture as well. We hear all sorts of stories about Albert Einstein. And my most reliable information comes from merchants. Albert Einstein would come up to Nassau Street and he would shop in some of these places. The rumor I heard when I moved here is that the shop owners would give him things for free. And that wasn't true. What they told me is Albert Einstein never learned to count change in any currency, and he would get a little nervous around money. So they would give him what he needed and send a bill to Helen Dukas, his secretary. Helen would send a check back to the merchant, but many of the merchants wouldn't cash the check because they knew the signature on the check was worth more than the amount. So poor Helen would have to come back into Princeton and give cash to some of these merchants to settle the books. And that's how the rumor got started that Helen wasn't that great of a bookkeeper, but none of that was actually true. Albert Einstein got lost in his own neighborhood. People say he has a borough police record for that reason. He would get confused and knock on a neighbor's door, thinking he was home. The housewife would contact the police so they could rescue Albert and get him back to one of his residences. Albert, when he got home, would go in the back door and he would congratulate the patrol officers. He'd give them a boiled egg and a little bit of orange juice as a thank you. On rainy days, Albert Einstein always had an umbrella with him, but he would never use it. All the residents and shop owners loved to tell me how it would be raining outside and there'd be Albert Einstein drenched in the pouring rain, but he'd have an umbrella. People would encourage him to use it, but he never did. Albert loved to be spontaneous. There was one holiday season when there was a choral group outside the steps of Nassau Presbyterian Church. While they were singing, they had a violin player there. Say Albert Einstein walked right up to him. He asked if he could use the violin, and he actually played along with the carolers. He even danced a little jig. There's lots of stories about the playful innocence of Albert Einstein. Once, his wife, Elsa, is going to have an afternoon tea at their home at 112 Mercer Street, and she'll have some few friends in the library. Unexpectedly, Albert's going to come through the room half naked and draped in a towel. He'll see the surprised looks on everybody's face. And without missing a beat, he simply smiled. He turned and gave a pirouette, and he danced right out of their sight. If you go up to 142 Nassau Street, it's 1 block away from where you're standing now. Go to Hewlett's Shoe Shop. That's a family-owned store, and that's where their father actually sold shoes to Albert Einstein. The family will tell you how, when their father arrived at his house, Albert opened the door with bare feet. He had traced his feet on a sheet of paper, and he had put markings on the sheet of paper to let their father know where his shoes were hurting him. And that's how Mr. Hewlett knew what brand of shoe to fit for Dr. Einstein.